You are listening to the US of NA by Nation Beer, a series of stories about the people and places from every corner of the country who are helping fuel the NA beer movement. If you like this episode, please add us to your library in Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you prefer to listen. For more great NA stories, including our many beer reviews, visit nationbeer.com. Interested in getting free samples while helping the non-alcoholic movement grow even further? Then consider joining IRL Nation, our new sampler platform pairing great food and beverage brands with great people ready to share them in real life. Join and share through groups and clubs you belong to, or just as a solo sampler. Signing up is quick, easy, and free. Go to nation.beer for more information and to join today. Welcome to the US of NA. I'm your host and chief optimist, John Eggleton. Today we're closing out our 2024 season with Angus Rittenburg, co-founder of Pennsylvania-based Wynk, who makes flavored seltzer waters infused with THC. They're distributed now in close to 20 states, as well as direct-to-consumer through their website. Wynk's brand origin story is not your conventional beverage or CPG launch, as you'll hear in a minute. As a result of the state-by-state regulations that govern the legalized cannabis world where they started, their initial beverage lab was a 53-foot, completely outfitted tractor-trailer they drove from state to state. I mean, can you even imagine? When the hemp-derived space evolved, they realized the opportunity to sell across state lines and settled into the model they have today. What I took away from this interview was just how innovative Angus and his two co-founders were when starting the brand. Like many brand founders in the non-alc space, Angus's background was not in beverages. Rather, he had an engineering background, having worked for Google, Tesla, and SpaceX. When you hear the tractor-trailer story, that will make a little bit more sense. But I think their approach to building this company through innovation and problem-solving really set them on a successful path. Here's my one-on-one with Angus. All right. Angus Rittenburg is one of three co-founders of Pennsylvania-based Wynk, a brand emerging as a leader in the rapidly growing cannabis beverage space. His prior background is decidedly not beverages. He's an engineer by trade who has worked for tech giants that include Google, Tesla, and SpaceX. Can't wait to dive into that. But first, Angus, welcome to the US of NA.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. So you guys compete in the hemp-derived space of the market, at least you have in the last year and a half or so, which of course is the side that's in place thanks to the 2018 Farm Bill. But I know your origins were on the state-regulated side of things, starting in Ohio, really on the medical side. And our understanding is, I know maybe your engineering background really came in handy in those early days when you had to get creative with that state line restriction that the regulated side of the market obviously still has to deal with. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about that story, the origin story, and how Wynk came about.
Yeah, well, Wynk was started in early 2021, and the distribution channel at that time looked a lot different than it does today. So in 2021, you could only sell these products through dispensaries, and you couldn't ship products that were dosed with THC across state lines. So that presented a unique challenge for beverages where, if you wanted to be a national brand, you'd have to produce a licensed beverage canning facility in every single market you wanted to sell. There weren't many beverage brands sold through dispensaries at that time, and it was for, largely for this reason. It just didn't make sense to pay for a facility in each state, and there weren't many co-packaging options. So the main reason that we got into this industry wasn't because we were cannabis consumers at all. It was because there was an interesting technology solution that we had a vision to develop. And that technology solution in the early days was a 53-foot tractor trailer with everything that you needed to produce beverages on it. So we had generator, chiller, air compressor, canning line, carbonator, batch tanks, all this stuff assembled onto a 53-foot tractor trailer we designed and built. And what we did in the beginning was, rather than go out and get licenses in each state to produce our products, we partnered with existing license holders. So these would be marijuana licensed processors in each state that had licenses that allowed them to produce and distribute products with THC in them. We would partner with them, and what we brought was a brand, Wynk, and the technology to produce that brand. So we'd show up at their facility with our team. We'd be there for a day or two and produce, 30,000+ cans. And then we'd leave and go to the next market. After we left, our partner would take those products, go through all the testing, and once they were tested and ready for sale, they would use their license to sell these products to dispensaries, and the dispensaries would sell to consumers. That was the early model, and that's how we got started. Now, when we started, we created Wynk to be a somewhat unique offering in that it was a beverage, but also a low dose product in dispensaries. The majority of products you find in dispensaries are for experienced cannabis consumers. Our goal was to get the alcohol consumer to go to the dispensary for the first time and offer them an approachable product. So that's how we started. The business has evolved. The technology we use to do multi-state production evolved, and we can get into that a little bit. But ultimately, in the past year and a half, the industry evolved in a big way for low-dose beverages, where we can now sell a version of Wynk that has the same effect, but the THC is derived from hemp. And because the THC is derived from hemp, we can produce it all in our centralized facility and sell through BevAlc distributors in each state.
When you were sharing the tractor trailer story, I was getting some Breaking Bad vibes in a good way. And it's really interesting to hear that story. I mean, as we talk to a lot of people in the beverage space, a lot of founders, they come from all backgrounds. And I think one of the only common theme is many of them, like yourself, came from outside the space or outside the beverage space. And in your case, it is really a technology problem at the end of the day. It's an innovation problem, and you guys had a solution for it, and obviously the rest is history. I'm curious, you talked about the dispensaries, and you have some experience there, especially from the early time on the regulated side, and getting in on the medicinal side. That space has evolved quite a bit. I know we had Keith Villa on the show several episodes ago. He's the founder of Saria Brewing in Colorado, and was one of the early ones who was making a alcohol-free beer that was infused with cannabis, I think back in 2018. And he talked about the challenges of selling a beverage in a dispensary. The consumer going in there, especially at that time, was not looking for beverages. They were primarily looking for smokables. They really weren't thinking about a beverage or an alcohol alternative, or definitely not a beer. And, he mentioned some of the challenges included things like the dispensaries not even having a cooler to keep things chilled, which obviously you walk into any beverage store, that's a big feature, is you can walk out with a cold 6-pack of beer and go home and crack one open. So just curious, in your experience, how the dispensary model has evolved and what they look like back when you guys got started versus what they look like today.
Yeah, I'll start by talking a little bit about the challenges for beverage in dispensaries. And so one of the false premises we had when we started the business was this idea that if we created a low dose sessionable beverage product, we could get the alcohol consumer to come to a dispensary. What we didn't realize and learned over time was that it's challenging because, one, low dose beverages that affect you like beer, people are consuming multiple of them. And so the throughput through the amount that you need to sell through the stores is a lot. People buy 6-packs, 12-packs. The challenge in the dispensary model is all the product has to be kept in vaulted space, in quotes, which is, a sort of preordained licensed area of the building. And when these dispensaries were, licensed, they didn't allocate huge space because most of the products sold through dispensaries are small, gummies, pre-rolls, vape carts, and those sorts of things. So there's just a space limitation that makes high throughput challenging. And then from the consumer side, the alcohol consumer that is not a cannabis consumer is not making that stop to a dispensary. And so to get them to make an additional stop or educate them that these products exist, very expensive. The majority of consumers that are going to dispensaries are specifically not looking for low-dose products. So the answer to that problem and what we did is evolved, and we created another brand called Countdown, and that was really focused on the higher dose consumer. With the higher dose products, they're not intended to be sessionable, so the volume that you need to be able to push through dispensaries is lower. And they're also sort of matching the consumers that are in the store. So we went all the way up to 100 milligrams per can for our high dose products under the Countdown brand. We still produce and sell them today using our own technology, still need to be produced in each state that we sell. And there's strong demand there for the higher dose products. So that market still exists. The consumer is still there. And it works quite well. But it's a very different consumer than we're targeting with Wynk.
So there's a lot of activity that seems to be happening now at the state level. And I promise we'll get into, I want to talk more about the brand and the portfolio a little bit here in a minute. Even just in the last couple of months. So, you saw California, Gavin Newsom really cracking down on the hemp derived space. Obviously, the regulated market has existed there for quite some time. Here where we are in Georgia, there's been new regulations that went into place on October 1st. I know from just having conversations with people locally, no one is even exactly sure, what all those laws. It's just so new that people are still trying to figure that out. And then more recently in Florida, they had recreational marijuana on the ballot. It did actually get more than 50%, but not the 60% that was needed to get over the top. And I know that the hemp derived space local to Florida, which is doing quite well, was part of the pushback, or at least one of the factions of people that was pushing back on that space and arguing that the current landscape was better for smaller businesses. So creating a little bit of confusion there. So it's sort of a crazy time to be in this category, and just curious how I guess concerned and or how involved are you guys in just at the state level, or even eventually at the federal level, hopefully, but even just at the state level, and helping to educate and make people aware of what this category is about and what it could look like.
We're extremely active, particularly on the education side, presenting facts to the regulators. We're not ones launching lawsuits or fighting. It's more working with them and trying to give some basic understanding of these products, how they're made, what the different dosages mean, how they should be tested, and really giving the information needed to create responsible regulation. I spoke on a panel at the National Conference for State Liquor Administrators a couple weeks ago, but it was a great opportunity to meet many of the regulators from many of the markets and understand the issues that they have creating regulations. And what I found and what I was excited to see is, generally they're very supportive of this category, understanding, willing to learn. Some were consumers of the products that we make. So I think largely it's supported. The challenges on a state by state basis extremely complicated between the state agencies to come up with cohesive regulation that everybody's on board for. So I don't think it's a case of anybody being like vehemently against these products. I think it's just a case where it takes time and a lot of diligence to create responsible regulations. The other thing that we do that is somewhat unique is we do have some self-governance and things that we stand by. And, our goal is to just do the things in lieu of regulation, try and do the right things to build a responsible category. So even if regulation would permit, we don't sell any beverages over 10 milligrams per package through the BevAlc channel. We do sell beverages over 10 milligrams in the dispensary channel. And the reason is, the dispensary channel's set up for high dose products. The people at the register in dispensaries understand what these products do and can educate the consumers. It's also extremely controlled supply chain. On the BevAlc side, this category is largely new to everyone, and products 10 milligrams and under are unlikely to give anybody a harmful effect. They're low enough dose that a new consumer can grab one off a shelf and try it and not have a scary or bad experience. So that's something we do voluntarily. And then there's a lot of things in the supply chain that we do that we think should be regulated in, things like chain of custody on the supply chain to ensure it's derived from hemp compliantly, third-party testing, full panel. And we put a QR code on the can so consumers can actually scan the can they have and see the third-party certificate of analysis that shows all the test results for the product. So it creates a lot of transparency in the products, but all the things that we tell regulators they should put into their regulations, we do voluntarily. Even, it increases expense for us. In a lot of cases, we miss out on revenue that we could get with higher dose products. But we ultimately just want to put products in there that create a safe marketplace and protect consumers. So we really do, as much as we can to sort of shape this category in a way that we believe is truly responsible.
No, absolutely. And I think you're right. I think a big part of it is certainly education. It feels like at the legislative level, I think a lot of these state governments maybe just feel surprised. They just see it rising and, see the questions and just don't really understand exactly what it's about. So it's great that companies like yourselves are able to be a part of that education and help explain kind of where the category, what you're trying to do, and the responsible distribution of these products. So let's get into the portfolio a little bit. So I know you guys have the four core flavors: black cherry fizz, lime, tangerine, and juicy mango. I think juicy mango so far is our favorite. And recently added a new seasonal flavor, cran blood orange. What seems to sell the best of that mix so far? I know you guys are only about a year and a half into this current iteration of the brand. And are there seasonal or regional spikes based on either where or when people are consuming these drinks?
By and large, black cherry is the most popular. So the core SKUs that we have in black cherry, lime tangerine, and mango, we've had those since we launched in 2021. We have a lot of history on these SKUs, and they've been offered at the same dosages since we started. Black cherry is always the slight winner. It's usually close with mango, and then lime's typically just below those two, and that's fairly consistent. Tangerine we launched in the beginning of the year. That's been popular and growing. I think what we're seeing is people tend to like more flavorful. To the extent we can make it more flavorful but stay 0 calorie, that really appeals to consumers. So, next year we'll be rolling out some new flavors, and you'll see it trend towards sort of more flavorful but staying true to our core of 0 or very, very low calorie. And then the seasonal flavor, it was a really successful LTO, limited time offer that we did with Cran Blood Orange. We pre-sold it to all our distributors and then produced and sold through DTC and wholesale. But really, really good feedback. Consumers seem to love it. And it's nice to offer these, something for distributors to be excited for as the seasons change, and something for consumers to try. And I think over time, we'll do more and more of these LTOs. And if there's really, really heavy hitters that consumers just love, they may stay as full-time SKUs, but it's a good sort of test bed for new flavors. And we're really excited about how Cran Blood Orange went. It was our first LTO, and absolutely worth doing more of.
So was that, what was the seasonality aim for that? Is that sort of November, December timeframe, or what?
Yeah, we produced, the goal is to have inventory October through the end of the year. We took what we thought we would need and doubled it. And I think we'll be out by the end of the month. So we sold more than we thought. But we have some good data now to help us for the next versions. But yeah, it was supposed to be a 3-month LTO. We'll see how long it lasts.
All right. Well, that's a good problem to have for sure. So speaking of that, let's talk about marketing a little bit. So I know you guys are very active in social channels, have a great presence on Instagram and some of the others as well. As I can imagine, you're looking at your next phase of growth beyond just, social and the other things that you're doing. What are some of the channels that you guys are looking to explore, take advantage of as you're adding distribution and really just trying to get more people, get the brand in front of more people?
It's interesting that just this state of advertising compliance in the US for marketing does force it to be fragmented, as you said. And some of the larger venues or platforms that we would normally speak on as a beverage brand, we're unable to. It obviously makes it more challenging, but I think for consumers, it's actually been pretty beneficial because it forces us to go find hyper-local opportunities in people's markets, in places that they trust, maybe annual events in cities that people go to every year and really trust. That's where we try and be to the extent that we can. So it's given us a unique way to be pretty personal with our consumers in our key markets. From that standpoint, it actually has created a good opportunity and forced us to really touch consumers in a much more personal way. We do as much sort of sampling related events as we can, just being out in the market, letting people try the product, and then doing it in places where they had the opportunity to buy. Something we're ramping up now that I think is interesting and a great opportunity for us is geo-targeted digital marketing that's store driving. So just getting in people's Instagram feeds, TikTok feeds, showing them the products in many different compelling ways, and giving them a way to quickly get to our store locator to find the stores that are close to them. So there's the marketing's just this sort of endless abyss of opportunity. I think what we're finding is, the more we can be very targeted, very localized, in the places and platforms that people trust, the better it serves us.
No, that makes sense. And you're right. I mean, it's too bad, obviously, that the market is the way that it is in terms of limitations. I know many of the social channels put a lot of restrictions on this category, and we'll see as things evolve with the overall market and what happens at a federal level over time. Maybe that can change at some point. But I know that does create some opportunities, though, as well as you mentioned, going hyper local. That does feel like where a lot of this category has been so far, and creating some great local partnerships to really spread the word, and maybe even some old school marketing, with that. We live in such a digital world, and targeting, as you mentioned, has become so common. I'm a digital marketer in my background as well, so I can follow along with what you're talking about. But there is something to be said for people who are able to share and have that experience together. So I'm sure that's been very effective. And the whole liquid to lips thing of trying to get these beverages, these drinks, these brands in front of people is definitely very important.
We did do an interesting out of home campaign across all our markets this summer, and we were on billboards, we were on We Paste things in the market with QR codes available, so we could actually see how engaging these were for consumers. Just tracking scans and seeing where they're coming from and where they go on the site. So it's interesting to get some out of home, stuff in the real world in our markets in the cities, but also be able to get the data to see how effective it was, and it was extremely effective. So excited to do more of that. And the other thing too is just over the course of this year, we've seen it shifting and bigger venues opening up to the category and allowing us to do sponsorships and sell product on site. So we had a great sponsorship with Riot Fest in Chicago. It's probably the biggest event that we've done to date. And we were served right alongside, big alcohol. In the tents, we looked just like the other products, right alongside sort of the adjacent alcohol products, and sold at the same price point. So we're at price parity in the same spot. And that's really the goal. Just get these products right alongside the adjacent alcohol equivalents.
So a good segue into the next question I had for you. So even in the last 6 months or so, there's been a lot of new partnerships that are happening in the non-alcoholic world overall. So Athletic Brewing is partnered now with Arsenal in the Premier League, with I think some pretty big activations in the stadiums there. We have the celebrity brand launch. So the actor Tom Holland, just launched his new NA brand Barrow Brewing, which kind of seemingly came overnight and really got a lot, got exposure that the category has not seen in the past. And even some of the smaller craft non-alcoholic brands like Headland Brewing out of the New York, New Jersey area is now an NHL sponsor for the New Jersey Devils. So, as you think about that, is that something you expect to see? I know there's the restriction side of things as you alluded to before, but do you expect to see that at some point in the THC CBD category, and how far away might we be from that? It feels like it's inevitable. It's just more a matter of when we'll get there.
I think it's coming. We have two challenges, related to this. One is being able to do it, just having the venues allow it. And the ones that do, for us, a prerequisite is that we be able to sell the product at the venue, right? If we're going to sponsor it, the consumers should go to buy the product there. So while some are comfortable letting us advertise in the venues, they may not be willing to let us serve yet. But it's coming along. I'd say it's opening up slowly. Very small venues are becoming more comfortable, and I think that'll continue to progress. But the other issue I think we have category as a whole is the distribution is still quite fragmented. We're not in every retailer in the market. It's not always easy to find the products in your area. So as distribution becomes more cohesive and there's better coverage, I think that's the time to start putting this money to work on those sorts of sponsorships, because it's a little bit counterproductive to spend that money now when consumers can't find it in all their local stores. But distribution for the category as a whole and our part in it is growing really quickly, and we're definitely excited to put those budgets to work for these sorts of sponsorships when we can vend at the larger venues and when consumers can leave those venues and find the products in their local areas.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you're right. It'll hopefully, when some of those smaller venues, you get a critical mass of those and some of the bigger guys start to see that trend and consumers start asking, whether it's their local professional sports teams or local music venues or other places that they go and spend money. Hopefully the consumers can be your biggest ally and trying to push for some of those things. And like you said, maybe that'll then open up some doors that make sense for you guys. So yeah, I agree. I feel like that's it's coming. We just we don't know how fast exactly, and that might depend on what's happening at the legislative level, both statewide and maybe federal as well. So last question I have for you is, what's next for the brand? I know you're still a fairly young brand, although in this space, starting in 2021 feels a little bit like an eternity. And I'm sure you may feel like you guys have started 2 or 3 different companies in that time frame. But I know we talked about flavors earlier, just in terms of what your thoughts and strategies are there. But what are you guys hoping for in terms of the brand as you guys continue to grow and build here?
Yeah, our focus now is really on distribution, just getting the SKUs that we have into new doors. We only launched through the BevOut channel and started selling through beer and liquor stores a little over a year ago in earnest. So it's really early. And I'd say, the majority of consumers that are at stores buying our products are new consumers. There's so many new consumers we're just getting in front of now. So these core flavors that we have are new to most. But we do have changes coming end of Q1 this year with some new SKUs. I won't speak too much about them, but more flavors, more dosages, and really listening to consumers and what they want to see more of. And this is sort of an accumulation of feedback we've had over the past 4 years. So very excited to expand the Wynk brand and the products that sit underneath it. I think next year is going to be a huge year for us, both establishing ourselves in the markets, becoming very well distributed and very available to consumers, but then layering in new product types on top of that to meet different occasions that consumers are asking for.
So I know here in Georgia, we're excited that you guys are here. And so I look forward to seeing those in more doors here pretty soon. How many states now are you guys distributed in?
I think we're just crossing 16 and we're about to we'll open 4 more markets in the next couple months. So our market expansion is very rapid, and we do have a good store locator on the website. So if folks are interested in seeing if we're in their markets, there's a good tool on there you can see, and it shows you which SKUs specific products are available in the store near you. But we'll keep adding to that.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing how that all plays out, Angus, and look forward to circling back with you down the road as you guys move into more states and hopefully we see some changes in the overall industry and I'm sure some exciting new products. So really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us today.
Yeah, actually, one thing that I'd add is for consumers that look on the store locator and we're not in your market yet, the unique thing with these hemp-derived beverages is you can buy online. So if you're waiting for us to come to your market, the product is available online in the interim. And thank you for having me on.
Yeah, excellent. No, and we'll make sure all that's in the show notes as well, link to the website where people can order the product. So thanks again. We really appreciate it. All right. I want to again thank Angus for his time and for sharing his story and Wynk's story. They're definitely one to watch in this category. As for us, this was the last episode of our initial season. I want to take a moment to thank everybody who has given us a listen this year. We recorded 22 episodes with 29 fantastic guests from all corners of the U.S. and Canada. While most of our interviews were done remotely, this podcast took us to Asheville, to New York City, Chicago, Lafayette, Indiana, and the Steel City of Pittsburgh, PA. Look for more on-site conversations to happen next year. We've got some great guests we're really excited about for next year already, so after some downtime, look for us to come back in January. In the meantime, stay warm out there and have a terrific holiday season with lots of amazing non-alc bevs, okay?